Hey everyone, Seth Campbell here. Welcome back to the Segue Says podcast. Well, as you can see, I've rearranged the studio a bit because I have upgraded my keyboard rig. I have a couple of synths up and running now, so I had to reorganize things a bit, but hopefully this new angle will work. In the meantime, today's episode features a real rarity because I believe this is only the second time I've done this, and I haven't done it since the very beginning, early days of the podcast. And that is that this segue features a show tune. The last time I did that, if I'm not forgetting anything, was way back when we did I'm Not Saying a Word from Blood Brothers into Double Vision by Foreigner. And that one obviously was very much a gimmick, sort of a head fake trying to screw with the audience. This one's not like that. This is just two beautiful songs that work well together, and one happens to be a show tune. The two songs are Wildflowers by Tom Petty, and then the show tune, Seasons of Love, which is from Rent. Now, to go into each of these songs a little bit, Wildflowers is the title track and the first track on the Wildflowers album by Tom Petty, which is technically a solo album, although most of the members of the Heartbreakers are on it at some point. It really is one of my favorite albums and has been all the way back to childhood. I've talked more on this podcast in the past about how we always had music playing in the Campbell household. There was always a record playing. And this one was one of our favorites. It really is just it's a masterpiece. Every song on it is fantastically written, well arranged, well constructed. It's such a variety of moods. Just an absolutely amazing record, and I hugely recommend it. In fact, I feel like if you ask most people their favorite Tom Petty record, not necessarily favorite song, but favorite record, you'll get a few people who say Southern Accents, a few people who say Into the Great Wide Open, but I have to think that Wildflowers is going to be the answer you get back the most, because it is just such a brilliant construction. And this song is the first one, and it sets the tone brilliantly. It's very delicate, lots of acoustic guitars. There is a bit of piano, but it's not very piano heavy. The piano's more ornamental. But for our purposes, we're going to make it a piano song. Seasons of Love is much more piano heavy, but we'll get into that. The song it's basically a verse-refrain structure. It mostly functions around this chord progression: B flat, F, C, F. Sometimes that C chord is held for 2 bars. Well, I guess a full bar, because it really is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 16ths are lightly swung. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat out at sea. Sail away, kill off the hours. You belong somewhere you feel free. Run away, find you a lover. Go away, somewhere all bright and new. I've seen it's bittersweet but still upbeat. It's very gentle, very relaxing, just an absolutely beautiful song. Like I said, most of it is this progression. Each verse varies a little bit in the melody or whether or not the second line holds the C. But it's essentially those chords, except for this bit in the middle and then repeats at the end. It's a little instrumental bridge. It's this progression. Let's see. B flat, F, D minor, G, C. B flat, D minor, C. And that repeats. And that will become important when we start talking about the segue itself. But for now, let's move on to Seasons of Love. Which is, I know a handful of show tunes, not least because when I first started taking vocal lessons, a lot of the songs that we worked on were show tunes because they're specifically written for singers and to showcase voices, and they often have, very wide-ranging melodies and have a lot of opportunities to really sort of test the voice and work on improving certain areas of it. So I did a lot of show tunes when I first started taking vocal lessons, and I still remember a few of them. And this is one of them. This has always been one of my favorites. It's from Rent. I think it doesn't appear till the second act, actually, which kind of surprised me when I actually saw the show for the first time a few years ago. And if you don't know it from the name Seasons of Love, you'll know it the instant you hear the opening lyrics. 525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments so dear, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in meetings, in miles and laughter and strife. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year in a life? How about love? How about love? How about love? Measuring love. Seasons of love. Seasons of love. You can probably already hear the similarities. Both songs are in F major, they're at similar tempos, and the progression is kind of similar, and I'll get to that in just a second. I'd actually like to mention that the reason I finally saw the show is my brother Graham actually played the role of Mark in a fantastic sort of youth theater, I guess you could say, but a fantastic production. So obviously the whole show and soundtrack holds a place in my heart, in addition to the fact that I sang a couple of songs from it back in my vocal lesson days. So it is piano heavy, and I'm not playing the piano part exactly right as you'd find it in a best of musical theater sheet music book. I'm playing it more in my style, which is a little more haphazard, I guess, but it fits with sort of the rock piano a little more, for me at least. So the main progression that you hear looping is B flat with a 9 there, A minor 7, don't play A flat, G minor, C, and then F the first time, then the same thing except it ends on a D minor. 525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments so dear. And so it's different, obviously, but it still starts on this B flat and then moves to, in this case, A minor 7, whereas Wildflowers goes to F, but those chords do share two notes, the A and the C. And the first time through the Seasons of Love progression, it ends on this F major, much like Wildflowers. And it gets there from a C, even if it's a shorter C in Seasons of Love. So I actually came up with this one day when I was, I feel like I was brushing my teeth, and I was just, for some reason, singing Wildflowers. And this idea just popped into my head, like, wait, maybe at the end of Wildflowers I could just go straight into Seasons of Love. And I came in here to the studio to try it out, and to my delight, it worked. So there are a couple of ways to do this. I like to start with Wildflowers. You really could do this either way, and I'll show you how in a moment, but I like to start with Wildflowers, and there are a couple of ways you could go from Wildflowers to Seasons of Love. was the last chorus. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong somewhere close to me, far away from trouble and worry. You belong somewhere you feel free. You belong somewhere you feel free. Now you could just go right from there, this last F that holds straight into the progression of Seasons of Love. Or you could bring back the bridge progression from Wildflowers, which is the B flat, F, D minor, G, C, B flat, D minor, C, and this is how Wildflowers actually ends. 2, 3, 4. Personally, I like the first way, which is not using the bridge progression, just going straight from this held F chord. Because like I said, the progression of Wildflowers starts with a B flat, so for a split second it's almost like you're doing an extra verse. Or even just another tag ending of the you belong somewhere you feel free. And by this point, anyone who knows this song basically knows what you're doing. Or they're thinking, what is this piano riff? I know I've heard this. And then as soon as you start with 525,600 minutes, then everything clicks and they know exactly what you're doing. So you can do that either way. Personally, I prefer to do it without the bridge progression, but that's just me. The object of this podcast is that you'll be inspired to do whatever you want to do. So feel free to do it either way. Now there is one last thing you can do if you want to either tease Wildflowers again at the end of Seasons of Love, or you could use this to go back into Wildflowers, is because the progressions are somewhat similar and the melodies are both very much diatonic and very in the key and simple. You could, at the end of Seasons of Love, loop this progression. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat out at sea, far away, kill off the hours. And what you see I did there is halfway through the verse, I went straight into the Wildflowers progression of just B flat, F, C, F, after singing the Wildflowers melody over the Seasons of Love melody, of the Seasons of Love progression for the first two lines. Now that's if you want to start with Seasons of Love and go into Wildflowers. That's the way I recommend doing it. Or if you just want to tease Wildflowers at the end, you could just keep doing the this is what I guess I would probably do this if I start with Wildflowers, then do Seasons of Love, and at the very end just kind of wanted to do a little callback. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat out at sea. Sail away, kill off the hours. You belong somewhere you feel free. And you'll notice that way it actually ends on the 6 minor chord, which is the D minor, which is very much a different mood from ending on the 1 major. And so that's why if you're going into Wildflowers, I like to end the Wildflowers verse with a refrain. Oh, somewhere you feel free. On the F, because it just makes it easier to ease into the mood of Wildflowers. But if you're just teasing it, you can keep doing the Seasons of Love progression and sing Wildflowers over it. And that's basically it. Like I said, a segue I came up with pretty spontaneously one day and was thrilled to see that it actually worked. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've learned something. And if you play show tunes mixed with classic rock tunes, hopefully you'll feel inspired to steal this and make it your own. But in any event, I will see you next time.